5 big questions for week 5. How are the big storylines in the NFL going to affect your fantasy team? And what should we be paying attention to in week 5? Come in, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk it out for 5 minutes so that you can be locked in for week 5. Question number 1. Can Dillon Gabriel breathe life into this Browns passing attack? Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Aside from Quinshad Judkins, who is absolutely crushing it this season, I tend not to focus on the Browns because no good can come of talking about literally any of them. But this is a big week for us because the Browns have usable fantasy assets outside of Judkins. A semi-competent quarterback can unlock much-needed upside for Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr., Cedric Tillman when he returns from an injury, and even Isaiah Bond, who has looked very decent early. Jameis Winston had Jerry Jeudy looking like an absolute superstar last season and had Steve Smith eating his words, but Joe Flacco has been a complete disaster. The best performance from any pass catcher in the Cleveland offense was Cedric Tillman, week 1 against Cincinnati, of course, 52 yards and 1 touchdown. That was the best performance. That is a major problem. I don't think I need to explain how bad that is. There have been literally three double-digit fantasy points by receivers in PPR from the Browns. That's actually insane. The biggest beneficiary here, aside from the wide receivers, could actually be Quinshad Judkins. Judkins has 2 complete games resulting in 2 top 12 performances despite the ineffectiveness of the offense. While we don't want to judge Dillon Gabriel off of what is arguably the worst defensive matchup, specifically for an inexperienced quarterback, because they will be blitzing him all night, or technically morning for us as we're watching, but we will learn a lot from this game here and learn what kind of fantasy upside these Cleveland assets can have with a different quarterback. Question number 2, what does Miami's offense look like without Tyreek Hill? I wish that we got a more favorable matchup this week for Miami. I have said it before and I will say it again. Carolina's secondary is truly underrated. Stephon Diggs' 100-yard performance against them last week was literally the only time that a receiver has exceeded 60 yards on them, and they have given up a total of 2 touchdowns to receivers this season. If you watch my videos, we talked a ton about Darren Waller this week, so I won't be long-winded on him. His debut was fantastic. Again, 2 touchdowns, but he was playing on less than 30% of snaps. So our big question for Waller is if the Dolphins aggressively ramp up his production this week with Tyreek Hill out. Mike McDaniel has shown how he loves an athletic tight end and how versatile it can be in this offense. With Geno Smith last season, there is significant upside here. But what we haven't gone into yet in any of my videos is the opportunity for Jaylen Waddle specifically, and also Malik Washington. First of all, I have seen some strange comments across social media about Waddle, not on our channel because we're not like that, right? But yes, Jaylen Waddle is sometimes an irritating player because of the constant nagging injuries. But when it comes to talent, I think that people are kind of forgetting that we have literally seen Jaylen Waddle as the Dolphins wide receiver 1 with Tua Tagovailoa and no Tyreek Hill. It was Waddle's rookie season. He had 140 targets, 104 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. That was his rookie season, and several of those games were with Jacoby Brissett. Do not underestimate the value that Waddle brings to fantasy football here as the Dolphins wide receiver 1. Then when it comes to Malik Washington, I am very intrigued how his usage adjusts with Tyreek Hill out. Washington has had a very low ADOT thus far in the season and been used somewhat gimmicky here. His size does scream slot receiver, but he is capable of being used as a quick downfield asset. Question number 3, is this a Saquon Barkley get-right game? Saquon Barkley hasn't quite been Saquon Barkley this season. He has failed to reach 100 yards in a single game. He is struggling in yards per carry. He has not achieved a single ceiling game. He's still producing from a fantasy perspective, right? But it's been underwhelming production. An RB7 finish in week 1 is cool, but when you look at Cam Scatterbo and a relatively similar performance in that same matchup against Dallas, and then Josh Jacobs blowing Dallas's defense out of the water, you start to look at Saquon and wonder if we are witnessing what we were worried about heading into the season, him coming off of that massive 2024 workload. Running backs coming off of big years do tend to struggle with performances next year. Now, to be fair, aside from the Dallas game, the Eagles' early season schedule has been legitimately awful for running backs. Kansas City, LA Rams, Tampa Bay, all very tough run defenses. This week's matchup against Denver is the perfect get-right game for him. Denver has allowed 2 top 5 performances to running backs this year, and they are far easier to attack on the ground. The Eagles should lead with Barkley, and we should have a big performance from him. If Saquon doesn't look like Saquon in this game, then we've got some problems. Question number 4, is it time to drop Calvin Ridley? I do live Q&A shows across social media literally every single day outside of Friday and Saturday, and I have already gotten so many questions about dropping Calvin Ridley. Full transparency, I did like Calvin Ridley as a draft target for his ADP. I underestimated Elic Ayomanor. For a rookie to come in and immediately take that target share from a seasoned wide receiver 1, that is something that we have to take seriously. I've talked about it multiple times in multiple waiver wire videos. If you roster Calvin Ridley, you're in a rough spot here because Ayomanor is looking like the wide receiver 1. And when you look at other underperforming players, you can still sell guys like Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd McConkey, right? You can still pawn them off to somebody else, but you can't sell Calvin Ridley. There is not a market to buy him, literally. Now, at first, I was of the belief that, hey, maybe we just need to wait it out here. Eventually, the Titans will get into more pass-friendly matchups here. Cam Ward will start throwing for more than like 100 yards. But now Ridley is dealing with an injury. Is there truly upside here, or are we better off turning to other fantasy assets on waivers in better offensive situations? It's tough, but this week might actually be the line for us. It might just be time to move on from Calvin Ridley. Question number 5. Can Ashton Jeanty repeat, or is Chicago's defense really that awful? The Raiders' offense is in a really weird place here. Geno Smith has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. Brock Bowers has been dealing with an injury and performing well below expectations and pacing well short of his 2024 numbers. Jacoby Myers' performances have been rather mediocre. Trey Tucker popped and has really benefited from Geno Smith pushing the ball downfield, but week 4 showed us the ugly inconsistency that can be with Geno Smith. But finally, the Raiders got Ashton Jeanty going. 21 carries, 138 yards, a rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns. Oh my God, it was truly, truly beautiful, but it was against Chicago. The Raiders' offensive line is still clearly an issue, but quite frankly, this was clearly the most put together that the Raiders' offense has looked all season long, and they should be leaning on Ashton Jeanty to push this team forward. But can they do it in tougher matchups? This week's matchup against Indianapolis will tell us a lot here. The Colts have been one of the more difficult matchups for opposing running backs, and they have done so against some very high-quality backfields. They allow touchdowns, and their yards per carry against them is fine, but essentially they are just allowing floor games. They are completely limiting any upside. Will the Raiders continue to lean on Ashton Jeanty, and can he produce a top 12 performance here? Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can also find me across all social media platforms at It's Terra Time, so make sure that you are tuned in because I am bringing you more fantasy football content all season long. Every week I've got you covered with top waiver wire ads, stashes, live shows, live Q&A where you can ask me questions, and so much more.